very careful about how I say this. Jesus is not saying, nor would I say, that wanting evidence is a bad thing. He's not saying that at all. What he's saying is, how much evidence do you need? And is your request for evidence actually a way of keeping the truth at bay, keeping it far from you rather than drawing close to you? Notice here the people asking the question of Jesus. The people who are asking and saying, we want to see a sign from you. Who are these people that are asking? Look with me in verse 38. It says, the scribes and the Pharisees. These weren't the multitudes. These were the learned people of the times. They're the scribes are the experts in the law. They were the ones who actually would be copying out, I've got to finish up Leviticus today here, and writing it out, jot and tittle, every detail. And the Pharisees, of course, those who were kind of the elders of the community, the religious leaders, watching over people. And Jesus says that their question, their asking, he says, is evidence of evil and adultery. Isn't that odd? It says, an evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign. Why is that? Why doesn't Jesus just take the opportunity to just answer the question, right? To just prove he's the Messiah? I mean, he probably could have healed one of their mothers or something, or done any number of things. Maybe make a tree grow out of the ground. Why didn't he do this? Well, there's a couple reasons why. The first is because they actually didn't need any more physical signs, because Jesus, this is a continuation of the day that began in the beginning of chapter 12. Jesus had already demonstrated many healings in this chapter. And this was all on a single Sabbath day. He'd healed the man with the withered hand. He healed many when he left the synagogue. He healed this man who was blind and mute and demon-possessed. I mean, they were all there, or at least could have heard this that day. This was not 3 weeks later. No, they were there. They'd already seen the signs. The second reason is they also had been given scriptural signs, right? Not just physical signs of his power and his love and his mercy, but they had been given scriptural signs. Again, just that day, Jesus quoted from them in chapter 12, verse 7, from Hosea 6:6. He says, if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. And then in the middle of chapter 12, he quotes from Isaiah 42. He's going back to the scriptures that maybe one of these guys had just written one of those out this morning. I mean, you don't know what these guys are processing in their own minds. Oh, wait, I just read that earlier today. Or, man, I wrote out that chapter last year. It took me a month and a half. I kept running out of ink, whatever. And he quotes from Isaiah 42, which talks about the character qualities of Jesus, of the Messiah. A bruised reed he will not break. A smoking flax he will not quench. Jesus had already provided scriptural proof of himself. He's saying, look, I match what's given. I match the thing you've been reading. Remember this also. These guys actually had the Word of God. Do you know how many people actually had access to Old Testament scriptures back then? Few people. But they actually had access. They're kind of more responsible, so to speak. We don't think about this often because we have access to so many Bibles, but we are responsible because we have the Word. We are responsible because we have the Word. So the first reason, they didn't need extra signs, physical signs. The second reason, they'd already been given the scriptural signs. But the third reason, I think, is the most important one, which is that the issue of signs, proof, really wasn't the issue at all. It really wasn't the issue. And maybe you've argued with somebody like this. Somebody who wants proof of something and you provide it and they're like, no. And they want another piece of. Let's say you got into an interesting discussion with somebody about the theory of gravity, okay? And you hold up an egg, okay, let's prove the theory of gravity. Let's let it go and see what happens. And you drop it, and the thing falls, and it breaks, and hopefully there's a pan under there so you can make some eggs. And they're like, well, it happened once. Well, let's do it again. And then a third time, and a fourth, and a fifth, and after the 11th, they say to you, they don't say, yeah, you're right, it's this thing. There's this force. You're right, there's this force. No, they say, maybe on the 12th time, the thing will just go up. That's what we're talking about. How many times did you have to fall before you got the idea of gravity? It becomes more and more proven to you. You don't keep asking about it because it has shown itself. And these Pharisees are like, well, I had this friend in college. Sweet guy, love him to death. Probably one of the most stubborn people you've ever met. We would argue for like hours, and we enjoyed it. But he would always kind of push it to its kind of logical extremes, you know? Especially like at parties and stuff, man. He would get into these things with people, and it was like, dude, back off. You're actually like, you're just making people mad because you won't give in to concede anything. Argue about stupid stuff, you know, like how much polyester is in a piece of clothing, you know, or I'm just saying like, you know, silly things to kind of to hold your own about, you know. There's one thing to be stubborn about, like the truth. I think that's a good thing to be stubborn about. But to be stubborn about like useless facts, pointless. See, the issue here is not that they wanted a sign, is that no sign was going to be good enough for them. I remember listening once to an interesting debate between a theist and a theologian and an atheist. And this person came up and asked the question at the end of their debate. And he spoke to the atheist, and I mean, those are always just interesting cultural things to observe anyways, right? But this person came up and said, okay, what would it take? Like, what proof would you want to show God's existence? And the guy went back and forth, and basically he did not answer the question. And that's what we're talking about. When you just evade what you would actually need to know. And this is stubbornness at its core. Without any turning towards truth. And this is why Jesus calls their asking of the sign. He says of this generation, these people here, you guys, you're evil. And this is adulterous. Because it's disingenuous, right? It's like literally wrong. And adulterous because their need for proof has become greater than their need for God.